Coming up on Phillies Nation, sponsored by BQ Basement Systems, Pat and Corey discuss the West Coast trip that ended on a good note. The guys also react to comments made by Lenny Dykstra on his interview with 97.5 The Fanatic last week. Tommy Green joins us on the mound, and I've got the batters and box questions for the guys. All ahead on Phillies Nation.
Welcome to the latest edition of Phillies Nation, brought to you by BQ Basement Systems. We are here at McStew's in Levittown. He is Corey Seidman, and I am Pat Gallen. Well, a pretty fruitful West Coast trip for the Philadelphia Phillies. They go out to the Rockies, they go out to Denver, and they lose 2 of 3. So it starts off not on the right foot. But then they go to Los Angeles to take on the Dodgers, a team that has World Series aspirations, that has a $3 billion payroll, and they take 3 of 4. And then they finish it off with a nice trip to Arizona. They take 2 of 3 from the Diamondbacks. And that was another series that started off a little shaky and then was shaky into the second game of the series, but they come away with it, winning 6 of 10 games on that road trip and 6 of their last 8. Not a bad trip.
This was a character-building road trip for the Phillies. Coming off a tough series against the Braves at home before going out west, the Phillies 6-4 on the road, as you mentioned, win 6 of their last 8, and that was exactly what you needed to see, because in the Phillies' previous 13 road series, after losing 2 of 3 of the Rockies, the Phillies had won 1 of their last 13 road series. They were 1-11-1, and that dates back to the second half, right after the All-Star break in 2013. The Phillies were 14-30 on the road since the All-Star break of 2013. So like you said, great signs beating the Dodgers and Diamondbacks. You could have settled for a series split against the Dodgers after winning 2 of the first 3, going up against an undefeated Dan Herron in the final game of that series. And then against the Diamondbacks, getting down 5-0 midway through Saturday night, looking like you're going to lose a series to the team with the worst record in baseball in Arizona. The Phillies come all the way back, win Saturday, get a dominant performance from A.J. Burnett on Sunday, come out of it 6-4.
So not bad. They come back and they are now over 500, 13-12 through Sunday. And 2 big components to this team are back, and that is, of course, Mike Adams and Cole Hamels. Hamels comes back, throws 6 solid innings. Start with Mike Adams, though, because he is a big part of this bullpen, and he looks pretty good.
We've been talking bullpen about how that's the biggest issue with this team all season. We've been talking about this since opening day pretty much. But if Mike Adams can be some semblance of what he was from 2009 to 2011, the pitcher that the Phillies paid him $20 million to be over 2 years, then the Phillies' back end of the bullpen can be very good. Mike Adams, in 4 appearances out west, 4 1/3 innings, 1 hit. It was a solo home run, so he allowed just the 1 run. That was the only base runner he allowed. 3 strikeouts, and he's starting the cutter outside. So by the time it crosses the plate, by the time it makes contact with the bat, it's already too far outside for a right-handed batter to pull. And that's why you're seeing so many batters roll over. That's why you're seeing Mike Adams rack up the ground ball so far. And the way it looks right now, I think he can get away with 87 miles per hour.
Okay, so if he can, the 8th and 9th inning are solidified, and if a starter can go 7, that's beautiful. The bullpen looks to be a lot better with Mike Adams in the fold. And of course, the rotation looks a lot better with Cole Hamels in it. He pitched 6 innings against the Dodgers last week. Only 86 pitches, kind of an odd choice of pulling him in that game. Ryan Sandberg decided, all right, let's not push it too far here. But nonetheless, it was a great debut.
Well, 86 pitches, but a couple innings he was under stress. You know, that was one of the positive signs you saw from Hamels, is that there were 2 instances in that game where he worked out of damage, and he nearly did it a 3rd time.
He didn't want to leave that game, though.
No, he didn't, but he did make some high-stress pitches, and Ryan Sandberg's being cautious. But like you said, with how much Hamels adds to the rotation, pretty much you're substituting a Jonathan Pettibone type, who's a fringy Major League starter, and you're turning that into an ace. So that's a huge boost. That's a huge net the Phillies have right there. And if 3 out of every 5 days you can get quality starts from Cliff Lee, Cole Hamels, A.J. Burnett, you're going to win a lot of games. And the last thing I want to say here is that on that West Coast road trip, starting pitching really carried the Phillies. 2.53 ERA out west for the Phillies starting rotation. 6 out of 8 quality starts was nearly 7 out of 8.
And let's continue to talk about the bullpen. And Jonathan Papelbon has really turned it around since that ugly opening performance from him. It's just a different Papelbon. I know the velocity has been a little bit better. It's still shaky from time to time, but he's getting by, and it's been great.
Since the blown save in Texas, Jonathan Papelbon, in 10 appearances, 10 innings, no runs, 7 base runners, 8 saves. He's on pace for 52 saves right now, which would be a Phillies record. So he's doing exactly what he needs to do, and like I've said several times already, had Papelbon had that blown save in mid-June, mid-July, the one he had in Texas, nobody would really notice. But because he was coming off a controversial offseason, everyone took notice and immediately assumed that he was done. Well, right now, Jonathan Papelbon looks like one of the elite closers in baseball.
He said, don't worry about his velocity. I guess it really hasn't mattered, has it?
Well, I mean, it's back, though. It's kind of back. He's hitting 92, 93, and if he can be hitting 92, 93 as opposed to 89, 90, he's going to be good.
Okay, and quickly, A.J. Burnett, since that hernia, he's been a completely different pitcher. It's been nice to see.
2.15 ERA on the season. What impressed me most on Sunday when he pitched 8 shutout innings against the Diamondbacks is that he didn't walk anybody. I think that was his first start as a Philly where he had no walks. So Burnett is really giving the Phillies their money's worth so far.
And that is exactly what they paid him for. And looking at some of the individual players, we're now a month into the season, so let's throw some grades on some players on this Phillies roster. And let's start with the offense, and we can start with Ryan Howard. What grade would you give him through 1 month?
Got to give the piece a B+. He's actually exceeded my expectations, at least for the month of April, on pace for 32 home runs, on pace for 71 walks, which is a great sign because Howard hasn't walked that much in a season since his last healthy season, which was 2011. If he can do that, if he can have a 340 to 350 on base percentage and mid-30s power, you're getting a very productive season out of Ryan Howard.
Okay, all good points, that's fine, but what about the defense? And that's why I gave him a C+, because defensively, he's still one of the worst first basemen in all of baseball. You're right about the offensive side of things. It's been nice to see, but I'll bring it down a little bit. I'll give him a C+. How about Marlon Byrd? He's been a productive, run-producing bat in the middle of the order, although he has been striking out a ton.
Yeah, I can't give Marlon Byrd much more than a C+, the way you gave Howard. I think I would give Byrd a C+ right now with potential over the season to be like a B, B+, just because, like you said, he struck out so much. His strikeout rate is 15% higher this year than it has been for his career. Swinging and missing a ton. Seems like he's trying to do too much, so got to give Byrd a C+.
31% of his at-bats have resulted in strikeouts from Marlon Byrd. How about that one and only Jimmy Rollins? Of course, solid defense. I'm giving him a B.
I'm giving him a B too. Defense has been excellent. Doesn't look like he's missed a step really. And you know, Jimmy, another guy who's on pace for a lot of walks this season. He's actually the 3rd best fantasy shortstop, if you can believe that.
One guy that we should be happy with is, of course, Carlos Ruiz, a .412 on base percentage. I'll be honest, I'm completely shocked because I was shocked they gave him that long-term contract. He has exceeded expectations.
I got to go A- for Chooch. Very versatile bat, can bat anywhere really in the order. Among National League catchers, he's 1st in on base percentage, 1st in runs scored, 1st in extra base hits. He's having a very strong start to the season.
We give Corey Seidman an A+ here for this show. Coming up next, we'll talk about Lenny Dykstra. He was on 97.5. The Fanatic had some awesome comments. We'll react to them coming back here on Phillies Nation. Welcome back. This is PNTV. Corey and Pat with you. And last week on 97.5, The Fanatic in Philadelphia, Lenny Dykstra joined Mike Missanelli in studio for a couple of hours to basically discuss anything and everything. And he told the truth about anything and everything, and one of them being Ben Revere. He really came down hard on Ben Revere as a center fielder. Obviously, you know that Lenny Dykstra was a pretty good center fielder in his day, but he basically says there's no place for guys like Revere in this league that don't get on base enough. Here's a listen.
When the Phillies broke camp with this guy, Ben Revere, he hadn't hit a home run in his career. Even Rafael Belliard hit a home run. Okay, what's his on-base percentage? 317. Really? You're supposed to hit 317. Wait, and he's leading off, and so wait, he's an average outfielder, and he doesn't have any power, and I don't know if a lot of people are like saying, hey, honey, hurry, man, let's go watch Ben Revere play tonight.
So some interesting things that Dykstra had to say about Revere, and he makes a point about the on-base stuff because Lenny Dykstra was a great on-base player. Ben Revere, not so much, something he's got to work on.
Ben Revere's hitting .312 this season, which you can't argue with. I do agree with Lenny Dykstra, though. Ben Revere's never been a high OBP guy. OBP through Sunday was .326. However, 6 of his last 7 games have been multi-hit games. So when he's doing that for you, Ben Revere is providing exactly what you need at the top, scoring runs, stealing bases. And what I've always said about Ben Revere with the on-base percentage, it's not necessarily that he can't take walks, it's that he makes so much contact that he doesn't run deep counts. So often he'll make contact and either get a hit or ground out on the 2nd or 3rd pitch of an at-bat because he doesn't swing and miss.
All right, the next cut that we'll listen to, Lenny Dykstra basically talks about himself and says that he wanted to be an entertaining player and he wanted to go out there every night and give the fans something to see. Listen to this one.
After the game, I would sit in my log and I would say, if I was a fan, would I have paid money to watch me play? Okay, and if that answer is yes, even though if I took an 0 for 4 or whatever, because you're going to take 0 for 4s, then I did my job. And if it was no, then something's got to change.
Lenny Dykstra, not a bad career. Very entertaining player when he did play. He was hurt a lot, though, toward the end at least. 375 on base percentage. He walked 140 more times than he struck out, and 6 times he stole 30 or more bases. Not bad.
I'd say when a guy has a 407 on base percentage in a 5-year span from 1990 to 94 with the Phillies, that entertains me. But, you know, it was really interesting, the concept of baseball players being entertainers, as Dykstra said several times, because when you think of it like that, then everything Carlos Gomez does is fine. Flipping the bat, getting into the fights. Yasiel Puig, same thing. But I think that with Dykstra, when you look at a guy like Chase Utley, for example, he gives you all the positive qualities of a Lenny Dykstra without all the negative qualities. Utley gives you the grit and the determination and going 100 miles per hour all game every night, but he doesn't bring you any of the baggage.
Well, I don't know if he'd call this a negative or a positive, but maybe his funniest or most explosive comments came when he basically admitted that he had umpires followed during his career. He paid about $200,000 to have them followed so that he would have dirt on them when he got to home plate. It's hilarious. Take a listen.
That story is a story that makes a lot of sense. I mean, so I'm not going to say whether I did or I didn't, but understanding that umpires and how much power they had was something that I learned early, and so I don't know, I mean, that's a great idea.
Some crazy stuff, at least he did admit it. It's pretty funny that he did, but it actually kind of makes some sense. You know, they hold the keys to a player's livelihood, and if you're a little bit crazy like Lenny Dykstra is, maybe you go to these lengths to do stuff like that.
Well, I liked how he kind of admitted it without admitting it. You know, he said he made clear that he didn't really, he said he didn't do it, but I mean, he was insinuating, he was kind of like, I didn't do it, but if I did, here's how I would have done it. But Lenny Dykstra's right, because if you start to count 1-0 as opposed to 0-1, historically, it doesn't matter who you are. Like Ryan Howard, for example, when he starts 1-0 as opposed to 0-1, his OPS is close to 1,000 for his career compared to like 700 when he starts 0-1. So maybe not the worst idea by Dykstra.
It's so funny, but some great stuff there. You can check it out at 975thefanatic.com in its entirety. And now we go to fantasy baseball. Lenny Dykstra, not a bad fantasy guy back in his day, and it's brought to you by Draft Street, the future of fantasy sports, free one-day leagues where you can win cash prizes. And I'll start it off with Jordan Lyles, pitcher from the Colorado Rockies. He's had a pretty good start. I wouldn't start him at home. Obviously, as you say, you don't want to start a pitcher at Coors Field, but he's going to be on the road this week. Takes on the Arizona Diamondbacks, who we saw this past weekend, and they haven't really hit much offensively. So pick up Lyles if you need that extra spot start. He can be a guy that's only owned in 6.8% of ESPN leagues.
The other guy I have, and this is kind of a sleeper to hold on to for a little bit, Gregory Polanco, the Pirates' super prospect, the right field prospect who's just absolutely killing it in AAA right now, hitting .417. And the Pirates need all the offensive help they can get. They are averaging about a half run per game less than the Phillies. They're hitting .221 as a team, which is third worst in baseball. And out of right field, they're getting a .204 batting average and a .264 on base percentage. So if they need help anywhere, it's right field.
One of our guys behind the camera, Rob, is shaking his head right now because he's a Pirates fan. That stinks. It is Fantasy Baseball. It's brought to you by DraftStreet.com. It is the future of fantasy sports. You can visit DraftStreet.com and use the promo code Phillies Nation and sign up for free one-day fantasy leagues where you can win real cash prizes. Twitter trivia is coming up, and so are we. We're coming right back on PNTV.
Welcome back to Phillies Nation, sponsored by BQ Basement Systems. It's time for our Batter's Inbox, where the guys debate your questions and I'll pick the winner. Ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. Our first question asks, who is the best option that can help the Phillies bullpen not currently on the big league roster? Corey?
If I'm going an external option, the guy I'm looking at is Kevin Gregg, the veteran pitcher with a ton of late inning experience, closed for the Cubs a little bit last season, had a resurgence of 3.48 ERA. And what I like about a guy like Kevin Gregg is that he has a legitimate out pitch. He has a splitter that generates a lot of swings and misses, and last year his opponents hit close to 200 against it. That's something that the Phillies bullpen, aside from Jake Diekman, Antonio Bastardo, Jonathan Papelbon, that bullpen lacks a guy who can miss bats the way a guy like Kevin Gregg can, and he wouldn't be as expensive as a Joe Hanrahan type, a guy a lot of Phillies fans are clamoring for, another free agent. There are about 20 teams after him, so he's going to be a little expensive.
Yeah, absolutely right about the Hanrahan stuff. I like the Kevin Gregg idea. I think that'll work. Ryan Madsen's also a name out there, but no one seems to be biting on him. The one guy that has to be in this Phillies bullpen, I'd say probably in the next month, Ken Giles. We've talked about him now. This is the 5th straight episode we've talked about Kenny Giles. He's throwing 100 miles an hour. I want the flamethrower in the bullpen right now. He can only help. And really, what more does he have to prove at Reading? I don't think he's got much more, because you're throwing 100, you're getting guys out with regularity, striking everyone out, bring him to the major leagues. I want to see him right now.
Well, you're going to win this argument.
All right.
Hopefully we'll see Ken Giles up here soon. Our next question asks, what is the best way to fix the Phillies bench? Pat?
The best way to fix the Phillies bench is to keep your fingers crossed and just hope that it all goes right. I think what will help is the return of Darren Ruff, and he's going to take some of the pressure off of Ryan Howard, especially defensively at first base, and you can filter him in at a corner outfield spot. But other than that, guys just aren't producing, and there's not much you can do. There aren't many guys out there on the open market that you can just go out and grab. So fingers crossed, plus the addition of Darren Ruff once he's healthy, I think that that's the best course of action.
It definitely is. Darren Ruff is going to help that bench from a power standpoint, but my main issue is just that you have two utility infielders on this team right now on the bench, in Jason Nix and Freddie Galvis, who aren't hitting. They're a combined 6 for 58 through Sunday, which is a 103 batting average, and they've struck out 21 times. Neither of them is producing offensively. They both look lost at the plate, and I take anybody. I take any bat. I take Bobby Abreu over one of those guys.
No, you wouldn't.
I would, because at least Bobby Abreu can give you a bench power, or a double off the bench, a walk off the bench. Freddie Galvis is an excellent defender, and he has value in that regard, and Jason Nix can play shortstop, so that's why he was on the team to begin the season, but you don't need both of them right now, in my opinion.
Well, sorry, Corey. I'm going to go with Pat on this one.
2 for 2?
You're on a roll, I guess.
Let's
Hopefully
do it,
Darren
yes.
Ruff can produce like he did last season.
Great.
Our next question asks, Bryce Harper just hit the DL and has been rather unimpressive this season. Who is the most disappointing player so far in the majors? Pat?
The most disappointing player in the majors so far this year has to be Prince Fielder from the Texas Rangers. I thought that a change of scenery, moving from Detroit in that Ian Kinsler trade, was going to do wonders for him. Now, of course, it's still early. It's just 1 month. He's got the bad body. He's reaching 30. He's going to dip in production. I'm really, because he was a first-round draft pick in a lot of fantasy leagues, and, you know, we're both fantasy freaks, so he was a high pick, and he just hasn't lived up to those expectations, so I think it's Prince Fielder for me.
If you are in a fantasy league and the Prince is available, I would definitely suggest buying low on him right now, because the walks have been there, the power just...
Yeah, it's not going to be that bad.
You know that's going to come. The power is going to come. Yeah. My most disappointing player has been Billy Hamilton, the center fielder for the Cincinnati Reds. Everybody has such lofty expectations for him, but really, he's hitting .221 with a .253 on base percentage, and he's already been caught stealing 4 times. Now, a guy with as much speed as Billy Hamilton, he doesn't need to have a 320 OBP to score a lot of runs. If he has like a 310 OBP, a 305 OBP, he can be effective. But 253, that's one of the 5 worst on-base percentages in all of baseball.
And Corey's going to win that.
It's not that bad of an argument. That was a good one.
All right. Well, our last question says, who has been the most impressive player through baseball through the first month? Corey? I'm
going to give a tie to two guys who are finally healthy, finally producing again. That is Giancarlo Stanton of the Marlins and Albert Pujols of the Angels. Pujols, 501 career home runs right now. If you look at that 500 home run club, he has by far the fewest strikeouts in that 500 home run club. Just shows you what kind of complete hitter he is, and it's good to see him finally able to move. The last couple years he's had some foot problems. Now the power's back, staying up the middle of the field, hitting the ball out of the ballpark. And Giancarlo Stanton, I mean, the power is just insane, the amount of power he has. And we always talk about how nobody reaches free agency anymore. Top-tier guys don't reach free agency. This guy will. He is going to reach free agency, and it's going to be like a $250 million contract.
And when he does, Ruben Amaro will be knocking on his door with a basket of cash. 2 good ones. I've got 2 better. Jose Abreu from the White Sox and Adam Wainwright from the St. Louis Cardinals. Let's start with Abreu. His power, you mentioned insane from Giancarlo Stanton. His power has been off the charts. 10 home runs through Sunday for Abreu. He set a rookie record through the month of April with 31 runs batted in. This guy is a power hitter, and he will continue to do this all season. One other guy, Adam Wainwright. He's going to win the Cy Young this year. He's gone 24 straight innings without giving up a run. Wainwright is the anchor to that Cardinals team, and he's a reason why they have been so good over the last few years and so good again this year.
Well, sorry, you're going to strike out on that answer. Really? Going to have to go with Corey.
Wow. 2-2 today? So we're still tied on the season.
We're still tied. I have a feeling it's going to be a long year.
Well, that wraps up our Batters and Box questions for this week. If you want to know what Pat and Corey have to say about your answers, leave them for us on our Facebook and Twitter page. Don't touch that remote. We'll be right back with more Phillies news.
Hi, I'm Tommy Green. Today we're going to talk about the pitcher and catcher relationship a little bit. I know from my experience, it's a huge thing. Even though you can be traded to a different team and throw to a different catcher tomorrow, the repertoire between a pitcher and a catcher is huge. As a pitcher, I want to keep the flow of the game, the tempo of the game going. I don't want to have to shake off. So a catcher that knows what I have and knows kind of what I want to do on the mound, who calls a good ball game, it keeps things going. I know my experience with Darren Dalton. He was one of the best at knowing what we had that day. From one day to the next, he called a great ball game. and it keeps the flow and tempo of the game going. I had to believe in him, what he put down, curveball, fastball, slider, or whatever. I had to believe in that, that conviction, or I shook him off. If I didn't believe in what he did, we'd talk about it. He'd come out and talk to me. And that's the type of relationship you need with a catcher. You just can't follow all the time. You got to have that personal relationship and talk about it during the course of the game. And he was one of the best at it.
Thank you, Tommy. Welcome back to McStew's. Corey and Pat with you here, and we get into a segment that we love. It's called By the Numbers, and A.J. Burnett had a pretty good game on Sunday, and he actually was the first Phillies starter to win a game not named Cliff Lee since April 4th. It's been a long time.
A very long stretch without a win for the Phillies starting staff. There was much made about that, but A.J. Burnett has deserved more than one win over his last 3 starts.
Absolutely. Sunday, a very fruitful day for starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. Elias says there were 9 starts on Sunday in which a pitcher went at least 7 innings and allowed 3 hits or less. That's the most such starts on a day ever.
There were a lot of top-tier pitchers going on Sunday, and a lot of guys under the radar had good starts too. Colin McHugh of the Astros, another solid start out of him. My couple by-the-numbers notes are Johnny Peralta of the Cardinals hit 2 home runs on Sunday. He already has 6 home runs on the season, which is 2 more than Cardinal shortstops had in all of 2013. Yes. The other one is Jose Abreu, who we mentioned a little bit earlier, Rookie of the Year candidate already. 10 home runs on the season through Sunday. That's as many as the Kansas City Royals as an entire team, which is pretty impressive considering the power the Royals have. The Royals off to a bad start, and Jose Abreu off to a great start, and he's making good on that 6-year, $68 million agreement with the White Sox.
That dude can absolutely rake. Let's go down on the farm, shall we? And Tyson Gillies, not so good. He was suspended 3 games for a bit of a freak out with some equipment in the dugout, so we've been waiting for him to finally break out. He was part of course, that Cliff Lee trade. It hasn't come to fruition. He's hitting just 184 at Lehigh Valley this year. And if you want more on that story and some great quotes from a teammate, Justin DeFreitas, Jay Floyd has more at PhilliesNation.com.
Yes, Tyson Gillies, the other 2 guys you were about to mention, Philippe Oman.
And Tommy Joseph as well.
3 guys who have kind of struggled. Guys who came over in trades for the Phillies, Gillies and Oman in the Cliff Lee trade of 2010, the winner of 2009. And Tommy Joseph, the Hunter Pence trade a couple years ago. There are 3 guys who could be contributing at the major league level if they had done anything, if they had made any progress down in the minors. Phillies bullpen definitely looking for arms. Oman could help there. Gillies could have helped in the outfield. Tommy Joseph behind the plate as a backup, and neither of them are really in position to do that yet.
Tommy Joseph, another concussion. He just has no luck right now. He had 4 home runs and 861 OPS at Reading this year, so he had been hitting a bit, but he took a foul tip off the head. And again, those concussion symptoms are back. And Philippe Almont, the numbers just not good. 8 innings, 8 hits, 9 walks, 9 strikeouts through Sunday. Guy just can't completely get it all together. Twitter trivia time. Hashtag PNTrivia on Twitter, and you can win a great prize from us. Last week, the question was, who was the first player Cole Hamels struck out looking in the major leagues? Do you know who that was?
I do now. It was Ken Griffey Jr. I thought that was pretty impressive that a lefty-lefty matchup, that's the first guy Hamels struck out looking. Not bad, Cole.
And this week's question is this. Name the Philly who started the most games at first base in place of Ryan Howard in 2012. You think you know it?
I do. It's a guy that I liked the acquisition of at the time, and it turned out terribly. But yes, I do know who it is.
I'm sorry to hear about that. Thank you all around. Thank you 2020. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you to my man Corey here, and of course, the BQ Basement Systems and McStew's. Come have a beer here. I am Pat Gallen. We will talk to you next week right here on Phillies Nation.